Technique. Kang Yang says that if you suggest Yi Yun to learn the secret totem technique, he won't succeed. Jian Ge explains that this is why Yi Yun will have to go his own way. She tells Yi Yun to start learning the Tai Holy Technique. Donger carries a cup of tea and doesn't understand why Mrs. Luo is being forced to study this. Mrs. Luo says that Donger is not given to understanding this. Donger is worried that Miss Luo might get hurt because of this technique. Mrs. Luo explains that only those who have seen life and death will succeed. She says that the head of the guard will wish them no harm. Suddenly, a guy walks in. Mrs. Luo asks Donger to leave them. The guy asks Yi Yun to come inside. Yi Yun greets Mrs. Luo. Mrs. Luo resented that the leader wanted her to study with Yi Yun. The guy says it's an order from the elders and asks them to sit down. He pulls out a scroll and explains that they will now learn the Arcane Technique of Tai for 2 hours a day. He adds that the elders and the leader will monitor their progress. Guy asks Yi Yun to take the scroll and start studying. He asked to follow him if Miss Luo had any questions. Mrs. Luo asks why the sudden need to put Yi Yun with her. Guy explains that they, as a gesture of goodwill, allowed Miss Luo to observe Yi Yun to pick up what eludes her. Miss Luo doesn't understand why among all the citizens of the Tai Kingdom, it is Yi Yun. Guy says that Yi Yun is not known to anyone, and his introduction to her won't get Miss Luo in trouble. Miss Luo understands and will take that into consideration. She asks Yi Yun if he can understand anything about painting. Guy tells us that the Arcane Technique of Tai contains the technique of consciousness of the essence of true yang. He says it was created by the founder of the Tai Kingdom and used to stabilize the energy of wild beasts. He explains that, according to the example in the scroll, Yi Yun must unlock the sea of consciousness and begins to cultivate. Yi Yun understands the teacher's words and prepares himself. Yi Yun reveals a sea of consciousness and begins to cultivate. The guy says to let Yi Yun open up to the inner world. Mrs. Luo was called to observe the cultivation of the Arcane Technique, but she doesn't see any effect. Yi Yun remarks that the Arcane Technique is complicated. The sudden tiger countered Yi Yun's cultivation. Yi Yun realizes that this is the very opposition of the two energies. Yi Yun realizes that since he controls the sea of consciousness, he will have to resort to drastic measures. The guy is surprised at how easily Yi Yun entered the trance state. Mrs. Luo wonders what will happen to Yi Yun now. The guy explains that Yi Yun is completely defenseless. Mrs. Luo pulls out a brush and laughs slyly. The beast confronts Yi Yun. Yi Yun didn't think that the energy left behind by the beast would be so unyielding. The beast pounces on Yi Yun. Mrs. Luo doesn't understand what's wrong with Yi Yun. The man says that deaths are common during the technician's practice. Now, it's up to Yi Yun. Mrs. Luo is outraged at the way other people's lives are treated in Tai. The man says this is the way of all martial artists. He assumes that Yi Yun's ocean of consciousness has already been destroyed. The beast will once again attack Yi Yun in the sea of consciousness. Yi Yun concentrates and accumulates his energy. Yi Yun confronts the beast and apologizes to Tang Hu. Jian Ge is worried about Yi Yun. Kang Yang realizes that Yi Yun's bloodline opposes the power of Tai Hei's Arcane Technique. Kang Yang quickly runs away, and Jian Ge asks what she's up to. Kang Yang had the idea to save Yi Yun's life. Dong Er walks over and laughs slightly, noticing Yi Yun. Mrs. Luo says Donger got rid of the drawings on Yi Yun's face. Donger doesn't understand what's being asked of her. Mrs. Luo asks to quickly call Yi Yun's sister. The guy says Elder Kang will be here soon. Mrs. Luo is surprised that Yi Yun's soul is still holding on. Among the wild lands, light spills over the world. Yi Yun copes with the confrontation of the beast in the sea of consciousness. Yi Yun ends his cultivation path in the Arcane Technique of Tai. A man replaces Yi Yun's success. Mrs. Luo is surprised when pure yang energy emanates from Yi Yun. Kang burst in, noticing how Yi Yun had already started to climb to the next level of development. Mrs. Luo doesn't understand why everything related to Yi Yun holds so many mysteries. Kang Yang remarks that indeed, there is something unexpected every time. Yi Yun opens his eyes, noticing Elder Kang Yang. Jian Xiaoju comes running over, wanting to know if Yi Yun is okay. Mrs. Luo explains that she asked her to bring Yi Yun's sister. Yi Yun walks up to his sister and says that he's doing fine, and Miss Luo just misunderstood what was going on. He thanks Mrs. Luo for her concern. Mrs. Luo turns away unhappily. Kang Yang asks Yi Yun to come out to check something. Kang Yang walks out of the house with Yi Yun. Kang Yang asks Yi Yun to activate that Tiger Storm energy again. Yi Yun tells us that when he tried to practice the Arcane Technique of Tai, he felt something unusual. Kang Yang asks what Yi Yun felt. Yi Yun asks when Kang Yang first told Yi Yun to change the method of circulating qi. Was it done intentionally? Kang Yang wants to tell Yi Yun that they never lost their suspicions about Yi Yun. She tells us that the Arcane Technique of Tai can amplify life energy 100-fold. Kang Yang says the all-consuming flame is used to destroy wild beasts and traitors. During the Tai Kingdom, an ancestor used the Arcane Technique to purify the wild wastelands, affecting countless tribes. Kang Yang says that they never found the reason why Yi Yun has a different bloodline. Yi Yun asks what will happen if he can't use energy after learning Tai He's Arcane Technique. Kang Yang says that if Yi can use both techniques, they will recognize him as a true genius. She says that otherwise Yi Yun will be branded in connection with the wild tribe, and he will never leave the illusory space. Yi Yun will keep that in mind. He will continue practicing. Kang Yang tells him to take his time and feel the energy, understand its essence. Jian Xiaozhou asks, Mrs. Luo, what the elders need from Yi Yun? Mrs. Luo knows what they want. Donger asks what Lo Hei's assumptions are. Miss Luo talks about the Storm Tiger Breath and the Arcane Technique of Tai He. She says Yi Yun should be more careful. Yi Yun realizes that it's time to apply advanced techniques, and Yun needs to find the Storm Tiger's energy and suppress it. Yi Yun finds the unstable energy of the Storm Tiger. Yi Yun walks closer to the energy and touches it. This is exactly what he was looking for. Yi Yun recognizes the painfully familiar qi energy. Yi Yun doesn't understand the meaning of what the Storm Tiger spirit told him. He feels the pure yang energy and divine lightning that is hard to resist. Yi Yun suppresses the Storm Tiger's energies. The spirit of the Storm Tiger appears in front of Yi Yun. Yi Yun says they're related to the tiger, and it's all thanks to the amethyst. Yi Yun has vowed to become a martial arts master, so he considers their confrontation a foolish venture. The Storm Tiger spirit doesn't reply anything to Yi Yun. Yi Yun doesn't understand what the spirit of the Storm Tiger wants. He realizes that it's better to imprison the spirit in amethyst, because it will save Yi Yun a lot of trouble. Yi Yun tells the amethyst to hide the Storm Tiger inside its core. The spirit of the Storm Tiger begins to fade. Kang Yang observes Yi Yun's progress. Yi Yun's true Yang Storm energy emanates from Yi Yun. Kang Yang doesn't understand how this is possible. She notices the peak purple blood peak energy in Yi Yun. Kang Yang says that Yi Yun is no more than 13 years old, and he already has purple blood levels. Yi Yun awkwardly asks if everything is all right. Dong with Mrs. Luo and Jian Xiaoju, watching Yi Yun's progress. Dong doesn't quite understand something, but to her, it looks like Yi Yun is very strong. Jian Xiaozhou thinks that Yi Yun has managed to cope with the ordeal. Jian Xiaozhou asks Kang Yang if Yi Yun's skill meets the requirements. Kang Yang says that Yi Yun has done quite well. Madame says that Yi Yun is one of the geniuses of the Holy City. She adds that it's worth observing Yi Yun's practice. Guy explains that he is only responsible for training. The rest is up to the elders and the head. He says that Yi Yun is not from a big clan, so Miss Luo can safely get to know Yi Yun better. Mrs. Luo doesn't understand what the man is talking about. The man leaves, for he has to report everything to the head. Mrs. Luo asks when she can start cultivating the Desolate Heaven technique. The guy replies that Mr. Yu-ha will be back in town in half a month. Mrs. Lo asks Donger to prepare the tea room. Donner doesn't understand what it's for. Kang Yang thanks Lo He for his hospitality. Mrs. Lo says no thanks. The tea is provided by Tai after all. Miss Lo would like some answers. Yi Yun wants to eat. Jian Xiaozhou says it's getting a little late and offers to cook some of the food he has saved. Kang Yang supports Jian Xiaozhou's idea. She asks if Mrs. Luo would like to try Jian Xiaozhou's cooking. Jian Ge apologizes for being late, as she was summoned by the supervisor. Jian Ge notices everyone eating lunch. She sits down next to her and says that this is not the first time the Arcane Technique of Tai has been mixed with other practices. What Jian Ge wants to say is that at the higher levels of the Arcane Technique, new ways of development are required. Kang Yang says that after overcoming the Yuan Foundation level, there are secret methods for learning the Arcane Technique of Tai. Jian Ge says that this could be the reason why the shepherd decided to visit Yi Yun. She turns to Kang Yang, saying that if Yi Yun passes the test, they will have to accept them as disciples. Kang Yang will spare no fertilizer and water on it. Jian Ge examines Yi Yun and Lu Ohe. She says that the test is ready for them, and it will be a dragon. A huge beast rages among the other monsters. He stops talking and looks around. The shepherd appears among the other animals. It releases a huge wave of wild beasts. Suddenly, everything's in tune, sensing something wrong. Yi Yun asks what the wave of wild beast energy was just now. Yi Yun realizes that they are still a long way from here. Yi Yun can see how in another week, he'll have a much easier time lifting the spear. He recalls Kang Yang's words about not being able to control his power, so he will train with her. Mrs. Luo is wondering how Yi Yun's training is going. Yi Yun tells her that he can already lift the spear safely. Mrs. Luo wondered how Yi Yun had managed it in just a couple of days. Suddenly, something starts to happen. The ground shakes under my feet. There are two powerful streams of energy coming out of the sky. Yi Yun notices this power, and it seems to be coming from behind the walls of the city. Mrs. Lo is surprised that things are happening so quickly. Yi Yun doesn't understand what Luo He is talking about and asks who is negotiating with the wild beasts in the city. Mrs. Luo is indignant. Why are there so many questions from Yi Yun? And Yun is embarrassed that Lo He got so angry so quickly today. Jian Xiaozhou calls them over for a delicious dinner. Mrs. Lo happily agrees. The beast releases a powerful stream of energy that hits the tower of the city. Staji notices another stream of energy in the distance. The shepherd performs a small animal. The beast begins to gradually increase in size. He turns into a terrifying beast. Stages tell everyone to prepare for battle. The supervisor doesn't understand what made the shepherd act so early. Saint Realm leader Yun Lun stipulates that the opportunity to infiltrate came much earlier than planned. He says that this time the defenses inside the city of Tai should be weakened. The implementation will go according to plan. The man affirmed that let the people fight. That way both sides would be weakened. The warriors flee in fear. The guy doesn't understand how the shepherd disappeared. One of the warriors says it was like this, and in doing so they heard strange music. He realizes that it seems to have been a ruse. The supervisor is talking to Mrs. Lo. Miss Lo doesn't understand why she needs to act so aggressively. The leader explains that the appearance of the shepherd has stirred up the entire nobility, and there are things that the chapter cannot control. Mrs. Lo realizes that they need the dragon to catch the shepherd. Supervisor says it's blood for blood. That's life. Mrs. Lo says that such an exchange will be paid for with people's lives. The supervisor pours the tea and adds that it's not the only thing they'll need. Mrs. Luo doesn't understand what the leader means. The supervisor explains that they need Yi Yun. He's connected to the shepherd for a reason. The supervisor still has some tricks up her sleeve. Mrs. Luo understands what the leader is trying to say. The leader tells us that when faced with disasters, one must always be able to distinguish between the following: Mrs. Luo says that the shepherd will show himself either way, and Yi Yun should get ready. Yi Yun raises his spear and tries again. He prepares to throw his spear at the steel wall. He throws the spear toward the steel wall, and it bounces off. Yi Yun checks the mark on the wall from the spear. And Yun already has the strength to hold the spear for 3 minutes. And Yun has to calculate the required amount of power control energy to do any damage to the wall. Mrs. Luo appears beside Yi Yun and wonders what he's up to again. Yi Yun asks if Luo He can really go in and out quietly. Mrs. Luo says she's not in confinement here. Yi Yun doesn't realize what's wrong this time. Mrs. Luo doesn't understand which side Yi Yun is on. Yi Yun asks what Luo He is talking about. Mrs. Luo says the choice is always left to him. Yi Yun remarks that someone has already told him the same thing. He explains that all he wants is to get stronger. He wants to pay back all those who tried to kill him. Mrs. Luo sighs, asking how long Yi Yun will pretend to be a fool. Yi Yun doesn't understand what they want from him. Mrs. Luo asks if Yi Yun thinks she's doing this out of spite. Yi Yun assumes that Lo He wants revenge for the taunting. Madame Luo gives Yi Yun advice that he should not rush to fulfill the trials, but rather gain strength. Yi Yun proposes to Mrs. Luo to fight, and the loser will have his wish granted. Mrs. Luo won't leave a living spot on Yi Yun's face. Yi Yun and Mrs. Luo prepare to fight each other. Mrs. Luo directs the magic orbs towards Yi Yun. Yi Yun dodges the first attack. The ball crashes into the wall. The fireball returns, and Yi Yun leaps up to dodge it. Suddenly, Yi Yun points towards Luo He. He prepares to hit her, and Mrs. Luo waits confidently for him.
Another fireball appears from Luo. He's back!
Yi Yun resents that there were 2 whole fireballs. He thinks it's unfair. Mrs. Luo says that Yi Yun should care the least about the number of shells. Kang Yang is picking up a good emergence of talent. She says she still doesn't have enough experience for real battles. Jian Ge asks what Kang Yang is going to do about it. Kang Yang recalls that Jian Ge was going to teach Yi Yun something too. Jian Ge explains that Yi Yun is not a disciple, as he hasn't passed the test yet. Jian Ge remarks that Kang Yang, as an elder, keeps making mistakes. Kang Yang doesn't understand how Yi Yun still hasn't passed the test. After all, he's a genius. She asks if Jian Ge should get any benefit from this. Jian Ge remarks that this is quite impertinent on Kang Yang's part. Jian Ge explains that as the ones in charge of this project, they have a lot of resources to grow it. Kang Yang is going to get to it later and offers to eat some delicious food. She leaves and tells Jian Ge to bring something delicious to eat tonight. Jian Ge is of the opinion that Yi Yun is definitely worth investing resources in. Kang Yang comes to Yi Yun and asks where Lo He is. Yi Yun says that since when should he care where Luo He goes? Kang Yang tries to find out if Yi Yun was upset that he lost to Lo He. She says that even at the peak of her strength, Yi Yun is still no match for Miss Luo. Kang Yang can give Yi Yun a few hints. Yi Yun offers delicious dishes in exchange for powerful techniques. Kang Yang tells us that Yi Yun's fundamentals are weak, so all of his endeavors look like child's play. Yi Yun asks the elder to guide him on the right path. Kang Yang explains that the Arcane Technique of Tai and the Tiger Dragon Fist must be honed to perfection. She says that in order to strengthen Yi Yun Yu's body in the future, key knowledge will be needed to maximize the techniques. Kang Yang explains that Yi Yun must strike with maximum force while on the verge of striking distance. She tells Yi Yun that he shouldn't rely on his movements for evasion, or he will lose his balance in the middle of the fight. She notices that Yi Yun risks everything in every fight. Yi Yun promises that he will correct his mistakes and asks for Kang Yang to train him. Kang Yang agrees and asks Yi Yun to put his palm on hers. She tells Yi Yun to squeeze her palm as hard as possible. Kang Yang says to let Yi Yun use his external power to change the flow of qi. Yi Yun is acting on Kang Yang's instructions. Kang Yang is going to infuse 2 different types of energy, and Yi Yun has to distinguish between them. Yi Yun first feels as if the tendons and ligaments have been strained to the limit. Then he feels everything change, turning into a calm current of water. Kang Yang explains that this is the truth of martial arts. She holds out a mask to Yi Yun and tells him to put it on. Yi Yun puts on a mask through which he can't see anything. Kang Yang says that the eyes are the last thing a true master should resort to. Kang Yang tells Yi Yun to get ready. She runs behind Yi Yun's back, about to strike. Yi Yun senses her attack from behind and defends herself. Kang Yang is once again behind Yi Yun's back. Lo He warns Yi Yun about the danger from behind. Yi Yun quickly dodges a powerful punch. From Elder Kang Yang's punch, a small hole is formed in the ground. Luo He indignantly says that Kang Yang wants to finish off Yi Yun. Kang Yang says, "What's the point if it's not real combat experience?" Kang Yang realizes that she completely forgot to warn Yi Yun, and only told him to put on the mask. Kang Yang says that she was going to train Yi Yun, but before doing so, she wanted to make him feel threatened. Yi Yun realizes that this technique is necessary to sense the changes in his opponent's qi circulation. Thanks to the amethyst, Yi Yun can sense his opponent's silhouette, even with his eyes closed. And Yun Yu doesn't understand how the two young girls introduced themselves to him instead of the old woman and Lo Hei. Yi Yun is about to take off his mask, but Luo He quickly intercepts his hand. Yi Yun asks where Elder Kang Yang has gone. Kang Yang replies that she's right next to Yi Yun. Yi Yun decides to take a closer look. Luo He hits Yi Yun on the head and yells for Kang Yang to turn back. Yi Yun takes off his mask and resents Luo He's actions. Kang Yang says you shouldn't fight recklessly. She almost got herself into trouble. Kang Yang suggests sparring since Lo Hai is here. Lo Hei says she is not a teaching assistant. Kang Yang recalls that Luo He needed a part from the nine-toothed beast. Luo He is immediately ready to fight Yi Yun. Yi Yun is surprised at how strong the nine-toothed beast is, that Luo He is willing to sell his soul for it. He asks what Yi Yun cares about. Kang Yang remarks that Yi Yun is also curious. She tells Yi Yun to train hard, tirelessly, and then she will tell Yi Yun everything. Kang Yang leaves Yi Yun and Lo He. Yi Yun puts on the mask with Luo Hei, preparing to fight with her. Yi Yun gazed wistfully at the starry sky. He tells Lo He that they had a good practice. Luo He doesn't understand what Yi Yun is happy about. Yi Yun realizes that he has achieved a lot because of the amethyst. He gets a little frustrated, because if it weren't for the amethyst, he couldn't even dream of all this. Luo He asks why Yi Yun suddenly hung his nose. Yi Yun says it's okay, and asks him to tell Luo He about the nine-toothed beast. Luo He notices how Yi Yun's ears immediately perked up when he heard the beast's name. She explains that this is a forbidden secret of the kingdom of Tai. Luo He tells us that the nine-toothed beast is a shepherd's riding animal, one of the strongest beast kings. Yi Yun is shocked when he finds out about the nine-toothed beast. Lo He asks Yi Yun to be quiet or else he's screwed. Yi Yun wants to ask Lo He something. Yi Yun asks Luo Hei about the dragon in confinement. Kang Yang wondered what Jian Ge was doing. Jian Ge asks Kang Yang to keep quiet. Kang Yang doesn't understand why he has to speak so coldly. Jian Ge watches Yi Yun and Luo Hei. Luo He asks why Yi Yun thought she knew something about it. Yi Yun says that a little earlier, when he asked about it, Luo Hei and the elder had very strange reactions. After all the sparring that followed, Yi Yunya was even more suspicious that something was wrong. Lo He says just to confuse Yi Yun. Yi Yun says that in fact, although the elders give him trials all the time, they are even now keeping an eye on him. Jian Ge let out a slight chuckle. Yi Yun thinks that Mrs. Luo Hei has her own stance and opinion about all of this, as well as a great attitude towards him. Yi Yun turns to the elders, saying that it's better to be straightforward and exchange information at once. Kang Yang asks what Yi Yun is up to. Jian Gei realizes that this is another waste of time. She says how every time Yi Yun manages to prove his innocence and make Jian Gei think that there's nothing to worry about in Yi Yun. Kang Yang asks if Jian Gei thinks the shepherd is just out of his mind. Jian Gei replies that it's not that simple. Luo, he realizes that Yi Yun really doesn't know anything about the wild tribe. Yi Yun says he was imprisoned here, untrained and not understood by anyone. Luo, he says that the leader and Jian Gei often used her to elicit information from Yi Yun. Yi Yun asks what Luo He told them, but she replies that she didn't tell the elders anything like that. Yi Yun yawns, saying that if Elder Jian Gei is watching him, I will prove Yi Yun's innocence. Luo He asks if Yi Yun has any idea what consequences await him. Yi Yun speaks the truth, whether it's the divine city leader or Madame Luo He. Yi Yun speaks from the bottom of his heart. He too wants to ease the burden of Madame. Luo He is slightly embarrassed and tells Yi Yun to lay everything out. Yi Yun wondered if he could ask Miss Luo about the imprisoned dragon. Luo, he doesn't understand how Yi Yun has the nerve to ask such a thing. She doesn't know if there's anything she can tell Yi Yun. Yi Yun doesn't understand why Luo He is so hesitant. Luo, he reveals that her family, Tai He, and the wild tribe are so involved in all of this that even Yi Yun couldn't even dream about it. Yi Yun realizes that Luo He can't talk openly about it either. Yi Yun say that it doesn't matter and offers to help each other in the future. Luo He suggests going outside to unwind. Yi Yun agrees, but only he needs to take the sword. Suddenly, Luo He gets close to Yi Yun and tells him that the dragon, the herdsman's riding animal, is one of the oldest. She whispers that to capture him would require a fight to the death, not life. She reveals that 10 years ago, the shepherdess launched a massive beast attack to destroy the Tai He kingdom. The invasion was not successful, as they were opposed by the powerful Shen Shu clan. Luo He says that defense has become a high cost, causing the clan to lose several elders. The tribesman leaps up and snaps his fingers. Warrior doubts that the leader has captured a key figure of the savage tribe. The supervisor says it's nonsense. That's all it is. The warriors will survey the entire house. Suddenly, the man glances up at a small painting. The supervisor is afraid he might have guessed. Suddenly, men run past to distract him. He orders to catch the one who runs away. Staja's chasing the guy. The supervisor is grateful to have him back. It opens the entrance to the painting. As she descends the stairs, she tells the dragon to come out. The beast replies that he's not going anywhere. The leader asks the dragon to tell her what he wants. The beast takes note of the girl's kindness to her enemy. The supervisor says there is no such thing as a warrior without sacrifice. She senses that the dragon dislikes these games just as much as she does. She thinks they're in the same boat. The monster is amazed at the sweet mind the girl has at such a young age. The supervisor says it's time. She reveals that the Shen Shu clan wishes to lead the front in the war against the savage tribe this time. She realizes that the shepherd won't show up this time because she too is biding her time from teaming up with Tang Yuan to attack Qin Yuan. The guy says they're not as strong as they were in the past, but they're not easily broken. He says they will need Mr. Yue Za's help in training the masters. The supervisor adds that the students will have to pay a reward for each wild animal killed. She is frightened by the numbers that come out. The guy says the supervisor is still just as great at managing the finances. Yi Yun sits on the ground after training and realizes that it's too wasteful to spend so much energy in a real battle. Yi Yun picks up and raises the arrow. He hears his name being called from behind him. Yi Yun turns to Luo He, and she says that Yi Yun is making too much noise. Yi Yun throws an arrow at the wall, explaining that he's just trying to cope with the challenge. What Yi Yun had heard was that Luo He was not well versed in the Desolate Heaven technique. He can help with that. Luo He asks what Yi Yun is proposing. Yi Yun tells how he met Su Jie. Lo He doesn't believe Yi Yun's words. Yi Yun suggests that they spend this night sharing their experiences. Yi Yun says that he has a good memory for Su Jie's explanations and gestures. Luo? He doesn't know if Yi Yun can be trusted. Yi Yun says that if he hasn't convinced Luo Hei, she can go take a break and then come back to continue training. Luo Hei pats Yi Yun on the head and agrees. Kang Yang notices the spears sticking into the wall. Kang Yang notices Yi Yun and says he did well. Yi Yun awkwardly explained that he got it by accident. Kang Yang tells Yi Yun not to pretend and asks about Luo Hei, who secretly helped Yi Yun. Yi Yun asks for a little more time before continuing the trial. Kang Yang decides to help Yi Yun. Yi Yun thanks Kang Yang for her kindness. Kang Yang explains that Jian Ge is fine with it, and the leader has given permission so Yi Yun can take it easy. Kang Yang wishes to ask what Yi Yun prefers, unarmed combat or blades. Yi Yun chooses the blade, for the further his strike spreads, the more damage it will deal. Kang Yang asks what Yi Yun knows about ancient techniques. Yi Yun says that dangerous wild beasts can only be defeated with stellies made of a certain alloy. Kang Yang is going to add a little more detail. Yi Yun listens to the elder attentively. Kang Yang tells that a dragon that has been imprisoned for 10 years, then an ordinary weapon will be enough to kill it. Yi Yun raises his hand. He had a question. Yi Yun asks if it would be more convenient if the material of the special arrow was melted down and made into a small weapon. Kang Yang explains that this material is very heavy. If one decides to make a blade out of it, the effectiveness of such a weapon will be greatly reduced. She says that people like gods have the strength to cut the beast with true qi. Yi Yun understands and decides to continue training with the blade. Kang Yang gives Yi Yun food for a week, and after the test, he has to perform on a real battlefield. Kang Yang notices someone behind a tree. Luo Hei realizes that there is only a week left. Luo Hei asks the head that can't Yi Yun be given a little more reprieve. The female leader explains that the Tai Empire has no more time for Yi Yun. The wild beasts are approaching. Luo Hei asks to be allowed to meet the dragon. The supervisor says that Luo, he's being in the holy city, has a different purpose. She explains that Luo Hei is still a child. Luo Hei asks who in their world isn't willing to fight for their freedom. She only wishes she didn't regret it later. The supervisor gives Luo Hei her blessing. Yi Yun starts practicing with the blade. He delivers many powerful blade strikes. Kang Yang observes Yi Yun's training session. Yi Yun applies his strength by producing blade strikes. Kang Yang prods him. Yi Yun swings for a powerful strike and slams his blade into the ground, forming a crack. The dragon wakes up, notices someone near him. He's glad that Luo Hei finally came. The dragon is surprised that Luo Hei had the courage to come here alone. He praises her for her bravery. Luo Hei has to admit that she's still very scared in her heart. The tower begins to shake and the ground begins to split. Luo Hei is amazed that just the sound of his laughter has such an overwhelming power. Dragon hasn't interacted with anyone in a long time, so he feels some excitement. Luo, he doesn't think this structure can hold him. Judging from the dragon's strength, the monster didn't expect you, that Luo. He was so bright and was able to guess it before anyone else. Luo Hei only wanted to hear the dragon answer 2 questions. Dragon likes her straightforwardness. Luo Hei asks if he will kill Yi Yun and spare the Tai He kingdom from a monstrous disaster. Dragon doesn't know anyone with a name like Yi Yun. The dragon says he will kill everyone here upon the return of his mistress. Luo Hei doesn't understand. She feels that the dragon and the mistress are somehow connected. Luo? He doesn't have time to agree as her mouth is covered with her palms. The guy asks to be quieter to Luo Hei. He tells her to get rid of whoever is sitting upstairs. Lo, he realizes that he's asking for her to chase away the raven with the mask. Luo Hei directs a ball of energy at the masked raven. The raven instantly flies away. Luo Hei asks why the guy is here. He says he'll explain everything later once they get out of here. Yi Yun is on the training ground preparing for the first throw of the meteor stella. Yi Yun builds up his strength and swings, preparing to ask for an arrow. He throws the spear toward the wall with mighty power. The spear crashes into the wall, from which a small piece breaks off. Kang Yang was surprised as Yi Yun threw the arrow with one hand. Kang Yang realizes that they have to make sure how powerful Yi Yun's inner strength has become. Yi Yun notices how his legs are already getting tired. He decides to make one last attack for the day. Yi Yun could feel his strength had already reached its limit. Yi Yun powerfully produces one last spear attack on the wall. The wall splits and collapses after Yi Yun's punch. Kang Yang is proud of Yi Yun. Jian Ge says that this wall would collapse even if Yi Yun hit it with an ordinary stick. Kang Yang wants to talk to Yi Yun about something before he goes outside. Yi Yun approaches Kang Yang. Yi Yun sits in his personal library reading a book about dragons. Lo! He walks in on Yi Yun, asking what he's been up to. Yi Yun is surprised that Luo He called him master. Lo? He asks what would be wrong with her being more polite to Yi Yun today. Yi Yun tells Lo He to leave if she doesn't have anything important. Luo He won't leave. She wants Yi Yun to thank her. Lo He opens a drawer with a book. Yi Yun wonders what it is. Luo. He was afraid that Yi Yun would die tomorrow and he would never have the chance to read this again. Yi Yun takes out a book from the drawer. Luo He is nestled next to Yi Yun. Lo He tells Yi Yun to rather read it. The supervisor suggests that Jian Ge play a game. Jian Ge says that everyone has tons of worries, and the leader called her here to play. The supervisor points out that Jian Ge's first move. Jian Ge starts with the heavenly beginning. The supervisor sees Jian Ge acting in a risky way. Jian Ge adds, like a dangerous caged animal. The leader understands the hints about the dragon and the divine kingdom of Tai. Yi Yun stands in front of the mighty dragon. Yi Yun steps back and looks back as an arrow falls nearby. Kang Yang says that once a good chance comes, Yi Yun should not miss it. She says that since you can't avoid a fight, you have to hit first. Yi Yun starts treading towards the dragon. The beast's paws reach for Yi Yun and he dodges them. Yi Yun notices how strong the dragon in front of him is. Yi Yun once again dodges the dragon's strike. He runs to the dragon's belly, about to hit that part. The blade enters between the dragon's scales and it responds with a loud cry. Yi Yun fires a few more punches to the same spot. Yi Yun notices a dragon's tail from behind that is looming over him. The dragon manages to fend off Yi Yun with his tail. Suddenly, Yi Yun notices the dragon's mouth getting closer and closer. Jian Ge wondered the head's opinion on who would win this battle. The supervisor asks what battle we're talking about. Jian Ge talks about the battle between Yi Yun and the Qilin beast. The supervisor suggests that Jian Ge and Kang Yang both bet on Yi Yun's victory. Jian Ge adds that whoever wins, the chapter has the final say. The supervisor says that she herself is just a pawn in this game. The Qilin dragon releases a powerful stream of energy at Yi Yun. Yi Yun dodges the dragon's energy and looms over him. Kang Yang tells Yi Yun to be more attentive to Qilin's next attack. Dragon says it's not over yet. The dragon's attack becomes more powerful and Yi Yun steps back. Yi Yun instantly dodges Qilin's attack and finds himself close to him. Yi Yun performs the execution of the heavenly dragon by Qilin. Yi Yun recalls what Kang Yang said about Qilin's descendant. Yi Yun asks that he may not worry about anything. Kang Yang says that this dragon was in the heart of the divine city, from where no beast could escape. She tells us that he has been imprisoned for 10 years, and there is no longer any energy left inside his body. Kang Yang wished she could tell about a case, but she thinks it won't happen anyway. Yi Yun sees that his punch wasn't strong enough. Suddenly, Yi Yun notices the dragon gathering clouds. Kang Yang doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't understand how the dragon was able to ignite her blood. Yi Yun realizes the dragon has taken the form of the Qilin descendants' fiery blood. Darkon comes off the chains with a mighty thud. He tells Yi Yun to run and save his life, and the Tai He kingdom won't do anything to Yi Yun anyway. Yi Yun felt a powerful force emanating from Qilin. Yi Yun turns around to Kang Yang. Jian Ge tells Kang Yang not to take any reckless action. Kang Yang doesn't understand what Jian Ge is talking about. Jian Ge tells Kang Yang to calm down and then nothing will happen. Yi Yun asks Qilin if the dragon will let everyone here go if Yi Yun escapes. Qilin laughs, claiming that he will level everything here. Yi Yun leaps up. He won't let the dragon do it. Yi Yun hits Qilin's face with his blade. Qilin knocks Yi Yun down with his paw, addressing the pitiful mortals. Yi Yun can feel the ground shuddering after the beast strikes. Qilin says that Yi Yun doesn't have enough strength to protect the people close to him yet. He sends a fancy stream of energy towards Yi Yun. Yi Yun held back the energy blade. Dodging, he runs at the beast again. Yi Yun produces another strike on the dragon. Yi Yun notices how the beast is already ready to hit him back. Yi Yun once again held back the energy blade, feeling the full power of someone else's strike. Suddenly, Yi Yun is thrown aside. Yi Yun gets to his feet, realizing that he has almost no chi energy left. Raven reports that Yi Yun has already engaged in a fight with the dragon, and his chi energy is almost running low. The tribesman says that they can already take over the entire Tai He kingdom, according to the plan. The guy says there's no need to rush, as the show has just started. The dragon is surprised that Yi Yun hasn't escaped yet and is willing to accept death. Yi Yun replies that running away was never in his mind. Yi Yun attacks the dragon, and with him, the tiger. Qilin doesn't understand, thinking it's another dragon. Yi Yun threatens to keep the fight on the feet. The dragon tells Yi Yun to remember. When he gets out of here, he will destroy the entire city to the ground. He says that this whole town doesn't care about Yi Yun and his sister. Yi Yun throws spears at the dragon. Qilin repelled every spear that flew at him. Kang Yang realizes that things are bad and tells both Yi Yun to run away. Yi Yun says not to be afraid for him. There's not much time left. The next attack will decide the winner. The dragon challenges Yi Yun by producing an attack. Kang Yang doesn't understand what the leader is up to. Yi Yun sees that it's time to act. Yi Yun only finds the right moment, but he needs to stop the flow of energy with his blade once again. A beam of energy rebounds into one of the towers. Jian Ge says that it is difficult to determine the winner in this game. The leader assumes that their next move will determine the outcome of the battle between Yi Yun and the dragon. Jian Ge understands the chapter. The supervisor notes that Jian Ge always understands her half-heartedly. The chapter has 3 pouches. She says to open them once the battle is over. Yi Yun holds back the flow of energy and realizes that it won't last long. Amethyst begins to absorb the dragon's energy. The dragon asks if this is all Yi Yun is capable of. Suddenly, everything around Yi Yun freezes and loses its colors. Yi Yun is completely unable to move. He notices someone standing on the dragon's head. Yi Yun doesn't understand why this person is looking at him. The supervisor asks if the man will change his mind. The man says it's the only way. The leader had no time to thank him after all. He had protected the Tai He kingdom for so many years. The man only asks for a guarantee of the treasure's safety. The supervisor understands who we're talking about. She's got it all figured out, and there shouldn't be a problem. The man says that when he dies, the beast will briefly pass out, only if the shepherdess hasn't devised a new plan. He hopes they haven't made a mistake in Yi Yun. A man touches Yi Yun. It's up to him now. All around, things are getting back to normal. Yi Yun doesn't understand where this flow of energy is coming from. Amethyst absorbs everything. Yi Yun has absolutely no idea what's going on here. The dragon is defeated. Yi Yun doesn't realize if he's dreaming or not. Yun senses the true divine realm of Tai. Suddenly, Yi Yun fell to the ground exhaustedly. Kang Yang runs into the house with Yi Yun in his arms and demands an immediate explanation. The supervisor leaves the matter to Jian Ge. Kang Yang indignantly demands an explanation of what's going on. Jian Ge is talking about the Yunlun kingdom. Jian Ge assumes that Qi Lin's dragon decided to commit suicide for the same reason. She says another storm is coming. The supervisor approaches Qi Lin. Lo, he realizes that's why he's handing over his life to Yi Yun. The leader says a long-standing feud between the human and the Dor tribes has never let up. Lo Hei realizes that the moment has come that could turn things around. She asks who Yi Yun even is. The supervisor says it doesn't matter because she has an assignment for Lo Hei. The leader entrusts Luo He to protect Yi Yun and Jian Xiaoju, for soon they will all be in danger. Qi Lin had been waiting for Yi Yun for a very long time. Yi Yun asks why Qi Lin wants to commit suicide. Qi Lin tells us that soon the tribe of beasts will attack the human race again. He says he betrayed his own. The beast tribe will never forgive Qi Lin for this. Yi Yun asks about his connection to the shepherd. Qi Lin says her master's shepherd and also a friend. Yi Yun doesn't understand why she won't protect the dragon then. Qi Lin explains, in order to protect him, he will have to kill all the people here before the beast army arrives. He says that from now on, Yi Yun must not fool around. If he takes one step wrong, death will catch up with him immediately. Qi Lin begins to fade away gradually. He tells Yi Yun to protect his sister. Yi Yun wants to know the answers to a couple more questions. Qi Lin has yet to answer Yi Yun when they see each other. Kang Yang is carrying Yi Yun in his arms. Jian Xiaozhou notices Jian Ge and immediately asks about Yi Yun. Jian Xiaozhou asks what happened. Kang Yang explains that Yi Yun has used up all his energy and is a little hurt. Jian Xiaozhou is taking care of Yi Yun. Kang Yang has no intention of forgiving Jian Ge. After all, she has hidden so much. Jian Ge asks what would have changed if Kang Yang had found out everything beforehand. Kang Yang says that she is also one of the elders of this city after all. Suddenly, Jian Ge takes Kang Yang by the face. Jian Ge tells Kang Yang not to ask anything else. She doesn't want her dead, Kang Yang awkwardly agrees. Jian Ge says that it's time to take Yi Yun as a disciple. Kang Yang almost forgot the most important thing. The elders walk back in to see Yi Yun and his sister. Kang Yang walks over to Yi Yun and tells him to say hello to his mentor. Yi Yun doesn't realize which mentor he's talking about. Jian Ge says that they, the two elders of the Tai He divine realm, will personally train Yi Yun. Kang Yang tells us that following suffering comes happiness. Jian Ge says that they won't lock up Yi Yun anymore, but unless he decides to escape from Divine City. Yi Yun awkwardly says he has nowhere to run. Kang Yang asks rather to welcome them. Jian Xiaozhou wondered if everything needed to be held more solemnly. Kang Yang thinks it's not necessary at all. Yi Yun apologizes, for he had not prepared any offerings for the mentors. Jian Ge says it's unnecessary. Yi Yun asks if they have a gift for him. Jian Ge and Kang Yang look amongst themselves. They jump headfirst, making Yi Yun and his sister laugh. Jian Xiaozhou tells Yi Yun to do what he has to do. Yi Yun kneels down and asks to be accepted as a disciple. Kang Yang tells Yi Yun to follow to them, because they really have a gift for Yi Yun. Yi Yun wondered where Luo He was now. Lo Hei sits on the roof of the house looking up at the sky. Yi Yun walks up to Luo Hei and she sternly turns around. Yi Yun greets Luo Hei. Yi Yun wonders why Luo Hei is always sitting upstairs somewhere. Yi Yun sits down next to her and says, "I can't find her on my roof, so I came here." Lo, he wants to get rid of Yi Yun's chatter. Yi Yun specifically came here to thank Lo Hei. Yi Yun notices Luo. He's sad look. Yi Yun says that life is so difficult in this world, so you should smile, at least once in a while. After fighting with the beast, Yi Yun became the opposite of so sad at heart. He says that that dragon understood humans perfectly, and even communicated. Yi Yun realizes that Qi Lin had the opportunity to kill him, and to Yun it seems that Luo He feels the same way as himself. Lo Hei only replies that it is possible. Yi Yun will definitely take Luo He with him. if he finds an earthly paradise? Lo Hee says that Yi Yun snaps and starts to become delusional. Yi Yun thanks everyone who took care of him all this time. Jian Xiaoju warns that if Yi Yun gets drunk, he might do something wrong. He asks if Yi Yun has the money to pay for everything he ordered. Jian Ge doesn't understand where it is that a student pays for a mentor. She's already paid for everything. Suddenly, the man reports that the leader wants Yi Yun and the others to report to the throne room. Jian Ge tells Kan Yang to pull himself together, for the leader calls them to himself. Yi Yun drunkenly talks about what a beautiful damsel Lo Hee is. Jian Xiaozhou says that Yi Yun, even when sober, often tells such things. Lo Hei is greatly surprised. Yi Yun tells Jian Xiaozhou that she is also oh so beautiful. He feels like Yi Yun is saying that to everyone. Jian Ge hurries everyone into the throne room. Soon they appear in the throne room. There are pipers and drums playing all around, and Yun really likes it here. People around are discussing that Yi Yun saw the shepherd and stayed alive. Yi Yun notices a new generation of elite Tai warriors. They approach the nobles of the Tai kingdom. Yi Yun assumes that those sitting next to the head of Tai are her guards. The people around are laughing lightly at Yi Yun's words. The leader of the Holy Kingdom, Yun Lun, is extremely angry. The prominent leader also laughs and apologizes for not being able to contain himself. Yi Yun doesn't understand what's happening to everyone. The leader of the Tai Kingdom explains that to her left is the leader of the Holy Kingdom, Yun Lun. She tells us that on the left is a prominent leader leading an alliance of 20 southern countries. A prominent leader says you shouldn't praise like that. They all respect the head of Tai. The leader of the Tai Kingdom says that everyone has heard the legend of the shepherd boy. She believes they need to get to the point faster. A prominent leader runs from his seat. She pulls out a small jug. She releases a silhouette of a shepherd with his beast. The leader reveals that the shepherd is actually a beast that takes the form of a man, and she is the one responsible for the wave of monsters that swept the world 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the leader doesn't know what purpose the shepherdess did this for, much less when the next attack will begin. She says the only thing they can do now is form a unified alliance to strengthen their defenses. People admire the head of Tai. The leader of the Tai Kingdom points to Yi Yun and says that he just recently slew a monster that was a friend of the shepherdess. Yi Yun doesn't understand what the head of the Tai Kingdom is up to. Yun Lun, the leader of the Holy Kingdom, is surprised to meet Yi Yun, who has encountered the shepherd several times and returned alive. People discuss that the shepherd usually didn't leave someone alive. Jian Ge believes that everyone saw Yi Yun finish off that dragon. Kang Yang adds that even if it didn't dispel people's doubt, she advises them to go and kill at least some of the beasts themselves. The leader of the Tai Kingdom says that it doesn't matter what the relationship between Yi Yun and the shepherdess is. What matters is that he himself is set against the shepherdess. She moves on to what they're all here for. She tells us that a wave of wild beasts may be coming soon. They will join forces and gather new recruits who can fight back against the monsters. Saint Realm leader Yun Lun adds that they have also decided to rank them according to their performance in battle. The leader of the Tai Kingdom had thought of everything in detail. A prominent leader of the Union of 20 countries that if people from her country get first place, she promises them prizes. Kang Yang says they can get together in groups of up to 3 kilos at most, or they can act alone. The girl grabs onto Yi Yun, inviting him to join her team. She says that Yi Yun's silence is a sign of agreement. Lo Hei is watching what's going on. The girl introduces Yi Yun to her friend Nu Tzu, and just like that, they are already 3 in a team. Yi Yun was confused, not knowing what to answer her. Lo Hei irritably decides that they'll get more from her. Yi Yun sailed over. Because of his indecision, he and Luo He are now on different teams. And Yun realizes that he's definitely screwed now. Jian Xiaoju says that yesterday, the elders gave her a map of the divine city so they could walk around and look around. She revealed that they also said that Jian Xiaoju did not let Yi Yun spend money. Yi Yun bows to Luo He and asks him to forget about what happened yesterday. He swears he didn't do it on purpose. Luo, he takes Jian Xiaoju and leaves, telling her not to pay attention. Yi Yun complains how the two of them bought so many things and now he's being forced to carry them. Luo He shows Jian Xiaoju a famous store that sells the newest goods. Yi Yun asks him to go slower. Jian Xiaoju and Luo. He admired the store. Yi Yun notices a beautiful dress on the girl. Luo He lightly punches Yi Yun and asks where he's looking at. Yi Yun explains that he just liked the girl's dress. Jian Xiaoju comes out in a soft blue dress. She thinks it doesn't suit her well. Luo He admires Jian Xiaoju's view. Jian Xiaoju asks if Yi Yun wants to pick out some clothes for Luo He. Yi Yun agrees. Jian Xiaoju notices how Yi Yun has finally started to mature. Yi Yun doesn't understand what Cises is even talking about. Yi Yun chooses an outfit for Lo He and offers her one of the dresses. Lo He notices that it's the same dress as the other girls. She asks that he wanted to compare which one of them looks better in the outfit. Yi Yun believes that girls like to compete. Jiao Lan pats Yi Yun on the head. She is not surprised that this is how fate tied them together. Yi Yun looks back at the girl, not recognizing her. Jian Xiaoju didn't realize that her brother was so popular. Jiao Lan says that Yi Yun didn't even remember his name, and already staring at someone else's breasts. Yi Yun awkwardly denies it. Yi Yun is startled when he notices Luo He behind his back. Lo He has already tried on the dress. Shoppers are surprised by her beauty. Lo, he notes how small their world is. Xiao Lan says it was fate that brought her here with Yi Yun. The salesman greets them by telling them that he has an exclusive item for them. Jian Xiaoju says it's a top-secret technique of frozen image. Yi Yun realizes that it's like their cell. The salesman hands Yi Yun over and says he can open it. Yi Yun looks at the pictures inside. Yi Yun says how equally beautiful they all are. Some person doesn't care. It seems like the dress fits better on Xiao Lan. Yi Yun tells him to shut up. The second customer says that Lo He looks better in this dress. People are starting to argue amongst themselves. The vendor calls for a vote to keep things fair. Everyone will take one bag and give it to the one they like best. A tie is forming between the girls. Yi Yun says that he voted for Luo He. Jian Xiaoju is the last one who didn't cast her vote. Jian Xiaoju ponders that if she chooses Luo He, Yi Yun will have a hard time with Xiao Lan. Suddenly, Jian Xiaoju puts forward her verdict that she is the most beautiful one here. Everything supports Jian Xiaoju's words. Yi Yun says they were never able to buy hunting equipment. Luo He shows Yi Yun the best items inside the ring. Luo, he tells them that all the elders' equipment is here, but what falls out of there depends on luck. Yi Yun realizes that this one is like a surprise box. Yi Yun was called a cheater when he was a kid. Lo, he doesn't understand what else the word cheater is. Yi Yun's luck is always with him. Yi Yun doesn't realize what kind of toy he's getting. Yi Yun marvels when he sees that very same mini crossbow. Yi Yun doesn't realize what a woman's toy this is. Lo He says to give it to her if Yi Yun doesn't like it. Yi Yun asks what he will use then. Lo He calls Yi Yun a greedy man, and he's going to get another weapon. He realizes that with his luck, he might get to pick a stupid weapon again. Yi Yun drops off a strange bag. Yi Yun realizes that this is something for everyday use. Suddenly, Yi Yun pulls out something surprised. Lo, he doesn't understand how Yi Yun is so lucky. Yi Yun sees some shabby book, calling it junk. Lo He says it's a rare treasure. She says that Yi Yun should know that this book contains all the information regarding the wild beasts that lived in ancient times. Yi Yun realizes that with the help of the book, they can easily deal with any beast. Lo, he flips through the pages that they are damaged. Suddenly, Yi Yun is hit by something as he calls the book useless trash. Yi Yun orders the person who hit him to show himself. A small piggyback renders in front of them. She looks at them indignantly. Yi Yun and Luo He are doting on the cute creature. Piggy explains that she is the essence of this book. Yi Yun wonders what she can do to help him. Piggy asks why she would help Yi Yun. Yi Yun tells her that he retrieved it from the ring where the book had been kept for a long time. Piggy doesn't understand where some two cheaters have gone. He realizes that it's about their elders. Piggy tells me that they promised even back then to take her to the heart of the wild plains. Yi Yun tells the entity to forget about the past. Now he will listen to Yi Yun. The pig turns into a large snake, ordering him to let her go. He tells us that for a short period of time, he could stop into any beast he met. The serpent tells us that he can't fight. He's just an ordinary book. Luo He says for Yi Yun to show respect to his elders. The serpent turns into a beautiful mermaid, saying that Lo He is much smarter than Yi Yun. Luo He clarifies that the book is also aware of all the ways of catching wild animals that are described in the book. Yi Yun realizes that this is simply a living book of martial arts. The book turns back into a pig and saying that Luo He likes Yi Yun. Lo He is threatened by the creature and it is willing to serve her. Lo He decides to use force after all. She tells Yi Yun to get ready to learn new techniques. Luo He wants to say that everything written in this book was applied to the reception of wild animals. Lo He laughs at Yi Yun. She explains that this book has two parts, one part with a list of beasts and the other part with a way to hunt them. After learning them, they will be able to fight anyone. Yi Yun and Luo He are excited about such a find. Guy tells the chapter that in the last week, he has managed to injure 3 and kill 14 people who were masters of illusion. At the chapter's request, he goes into more detail about the masters of illusion. The leader of the Tai He kingdom turns around, accepting the guy's words. The guy couldn't keep track of everyone and asks to be punished. The leader of the Tai He kingdom says that before this guy was in charge of keeping information about the dragon, but it's not his responsibility at all. The leader says they must spread the word that the dragon is dead. The leader of the Tai He kingdom puts on a mask, saying that she will personally go hunting tonight. Luo He is in the martial skill training hall. Jian Ge introduces a member of the royal family, Master Yue Hua, who was invited by the leader herself. The warriors are discussing Yue Hua. The master tells everyone to watch carefully. He concentrates on his strength. Master Yue Hua directs the flow of powerful energy. The beam breaks the chains on the bones of the wild beast. He explains that you need to gather the right amount of qi energy. He goes on to explain what needs to be condensed into a balloon. Jian Ge realizes that she and Su Jie wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Jian Ge says that the bones of powerful ancient beasts can only be used as jewelry, but Master Yue Hua is able to refine them. Lo He should definitely learn this. Jian Ge said that if they went to the wild plains without learning important techniques, the probability of failure would be higher than usual. Yi Yun walks into the room and apologizes for being late. Master Yue Hua says that Yi Yun is the first person to be late for his lesson. Yi Yun asks the teacher to turn the movements he was just showing. Master Yue Hua would gladly repeat it, but he no longer had an extra beast bone. He begins to try this technique. A rumor reaches Yue Hua that there is a young girl with a pronounced talent. He realizes that it is Luo He. Yi Yun notices that this is a skill that Su Jie possessed. It was a pity that Yi Yun hadn't honed the skill properly back then. Students conduct unsuccessful attempts with practicing techniques. Master Yue Hua praised Luo He for a good result. Lo He is surprised that the master knows her. Suddenly, the master notices something near him. Yi Yun is also trying to replicate teacher Yue Hua's skill. Jian Ge sees that Su Jie has taught Yi Yun something after all.
Yi Yun's bone is transformed.
Lo He realizes that the truth is genius. Luo He was greatly helped by her ancestral gift, and Yi Yun was helped by his crystal. Master Yue Hua realizes that they are Tai Hei's treasure. Yue Hua officially wants to take Yi Yun as his disciple. He also takes Lo He to him. Yi Yun says he already has a mentor. Master Yue Hua wants to find out who this person is. Yi Yun says it's a secret, but he still wants to thank Yue Hua for choosing him. Jian Gei doesn't understand why Yi Yun is looking at her as if she wants to frame her mentor. Master Yue Hua looks over at Jian Gei. Lo. He speaks up for Yi Yun that he agrees and his mentor won't mind either. Luo, he explains that the elder is fine with Yi Yun learning from Master Yue Hua. Jian Gei advises everyone to speed up their training. He says they will pay for further lessons with their own points. Kang Yang wondered what the city lord's plans were. Jian talks about plans to make it so that when presented with the enemy, the students don't chicken out and learn how to defend themselves. Kang Yang asks to tell Jian Ge all the details. Jian Ge explains that if she does, Kang Yang will speak and act somewhat impulsively. Jian Ge tells us that Yun Lun's magic cloud tower attacked the god city. Kang Yang interrupts Jian Ge. She says that the city lord has decided to personally restore order there. Jian Ge says that during the fighting period, they must take all precautions to avoid causing panic. Kang Yang asks, what will they do? Jian Ge says that they will just watch these kids. She suggests that Kang Yang develop a plan to support them. Kang Yang agrees to show them her resourcefulness. Lo Hei asks Donger to keep an eye on the tea. Don has finished reading the scroll and finds the content simply incredible. Yi Yun looks at pictures of the flora and fauna of the great wilderness. After Luo He completely learns the Desolate Heaven technique, then he would give Yi Yun a couple of extra lessons. Kang Yang wonders if Lo Hei has anything left to eat. Yi Yun asks what Kang Yang meant when she told Yi Yun that he had a chance to get rich. Kang Yang says that martial arts training is done through a point-scoring and ranking system. Kang Yang realizes that Yi Yun is up to something. Kang Yang and Yi Yun have a sly laugh. Luo He finds this laughter a bit strange. People didn't even notice Saint Realm leader Yun Lun fleeing without a trace. The illusion of the Misty Bird endows him with more than just the characteristics of the corresponding energetic entity. He is empowered by hundreds of poisons. Now the head of the Yun Lun Holy Kingdom can't catch up. The illusion of the Misty Bird comes in layer upon layer. There will always be a layer that clings to you as well. With the man's ability, no one will ever guess that his lair is just an illusion, and the real one is here. Suddenly he notices the head of Tai ahead. Saint Realm leader Yun Lun falls to the ground. The leader of the Tai He Kingdom pierces through the real body of the head of the Holy Kingdom, Yun Lun. He doesn't understand how the head of the Tai He Kingdom did it. The dead men stand up, addressing the head of the Holy Kingdom, and walk toward him. Jian Gei has no idea what the city lord did to the remnants of the group of people in the heavenly cloud tower. She adds that it's already a former magic cloud tower. Yi Yun asks Jian Xiaozhou what she is doing. Jian Xiaozhou replied that it had been so long since she had slept next to Yi Yun. She is afraid that something very strange is about to happen. Yi Yun wondered what reason she had for being so afraid. Yi Yun turns to his sister and tells her not to be afraid, for he will protect her. Thanks for watching, guys.